Hello, everyone. My name is Sarahi Juarez, and I am the Retention and Recruitment Specialist with the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. And today I'm going to share with you all my ARP project that I did with MPLD, and I did mine on adverse childhood experiences, otherwise known as ACEs. So a little bit about my background. Like I said, my name is Sarahi, and I am very passionate about mental health and well-being. I studied neuroscience and business, and I am currently the Retention and Recruitment Specialist with the Department of Health and Welfare in Idaho, and I am based in Boise. This is a video by Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris, the former General Surgeon of California, and I'm going to link her video below so you all can watch it on your own time, which is a short 5-minute video where she describes what ACEs do to us and what toxic stress does to children, and some shocking numbers that I think should be yelled from the rooftops. So some definitions: adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, are potentially traumatic events that occur in childhood from 0 to 17 years old. And toxic stress that can be resulted from ACEs is prolonged activation of the stress response systems and absence of protective relationships. Resiliency is a combination of protective factors that enable people to adapt in the face of serious hardship and is essential to ensuring that children who experience adversity can still become healthy, productive citizens. Now, when Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris talks about ACEs and childhood trauma, she does touch on how there's a 20-year difference in life expectancy when it comes to children who experience 4 or more ACEs. And I think that is truly astonishing. It's something that we should be talking about more, because 20 years is a huge chunk of time. So here we have all the ACEs categories, and we have 3 main categories of abuse, neglect, and household dysfunction. This 10-item scale is under the 3 umbrellas and is not a comprehensive list, as there can be other types of trauma, but we do have physical, emotional, and sexual abuse, physical and emotional neglect, and in household dysfunction, we have mental illness, incarcerated relative, mother treated violently, substance abuse, and divorce. Now, here we have expanded ACEs, which is more than just your conventional ACEs, and living in foster care is one of those. Children in foster care with greater cumulative ACE exposure are significantly more likely to experience placement instability, and independently, ACEs in foster care involvement along with placement instability have been shown to have negative long-term health and well-being consequences. This is on top of ACEs and how they negatively impact our health. So in addition to living in foster care, we also have bullying, community violence, neighborhood safety, and racism. So I'm going to share a little bit about my story and what got me so passionate about talking about mental health and ACEs. So I experienced all 10 ACEs by the time I was 10 years old, which is a lot. And our fight and flight systems is, they're meant to protect us and help us adapt, but because mine was constant, it became toxic stress, it became maladaptive. I like to use the bear example that Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris uses. So say one day you're staying in a cabin, right? And a bear breaks in. You are going to have, adrenaline pumping through your body. Your heart's going to start pumping. You're going to start sweating and freaking out. And you're either going to decide to fight or flight. Most people would decide to fight because we're not going to try to fight a bear. And say this bear, leaves and it's all situated. You go back and are able to sleep because the bear left. But say the bear starts showing up again the next night. Again, your body's going to experience the stress and you're either going to fight or flight. Say the bear leaves, everything's fine again. And there's, buffers in between. But say that the bear starts to come every night and every night after that. You're soon going to experience what's, maladaptive responses to this behavior and this situation. Instead of being adaptive to what's going on around you, your body's going to start to break down and experience toxic stress. So this will later in life turn to disease because constant activation of fight or flight has been shown to alter your DNA. You get sick more often, depression and anxiety are more likely to occur, and a lot can go wrong. So I come from a pretty small immediate family. It's just my sister and I. And I like to joke that I'm the one that's always getting sick. It never feels like I always get the flu in the winter, and I, get jabs here and there about like, oh, you're always getting sick. And I swear that I was patient zero when it came to COVID in Idaho, because I was the first one that got sick out of everyone around me and in my immediate family. But, as a child experiencing all of this, it was detrimental to my health and well-being. Instead of learning and growing, I was in survival mode. However, I had one caring adult. My grandma never gave up on me and allowed me to make mistakes. She was my constant and rooted for me even when I misbehaved or lashed out. I lived with her for a few years, and I truly believe that my life would have ended up completely differently had I not had the support of her presence and my upbringing. I've been fortunate enough to have a community of support as well. And although I was strongly tempted to turn to the dark side, I didn't allow myself to cope that way, because I learned how to build resiliency, mostly due to her. And yes, I had very difficult moments and even moments where I wanted to give up. And to be honest, because of her, I carried on. And every time I speak to her on the phone, she says, Sarahi, make sure that you're taking care of yourself, because what you do today will determine your future. And I carry that quote with me everywhere and in everything I do, to be honest. So the challenge right now in Idaho is that we have a shortage of foster parents, especially for teens aging out of the system. Currently, Idaho does not train resource parents on adverse childhood experiences, and we are aware that children have undergone some sort of trauma, but we're not educating resource parents on what ACEs do to brain development across the lifespan. So this is my PICO, and I developed this with mental health in mind. So if individuals currently fostering and those interested in becoming resource or prospective foster parents receive training on adverse childhood experiences or ACEs and its long-term effects on the brain, and evidence-based practices for addressing childhood trauma in teens, and information about available resources, including support groups, will they report an increased willingness to and decide to foster and build resiliency in teens. So the literature, there's a powerful, persistent correlation between ACEs experience and the greater the chance of poor outcomes later in life, including dramatically increased risk of heart disease, diabetes, obesity, depression, substance abuse, smoking, poor academic achievement, time out of work, and even early death. Like I said, the 20-year life expectancy just blew my mind when I learned about it. For children in foster care, exposure rates are amplified. 45% report experiencing parental mental illness or parental divorce. 34% grow up in households with caregivers with mental health illnesses, and 54% report parental substance abuse, and 76% report exposure to at least one ACE. And there is a dose-response relationship with ACEs. So the higher ACE score, the worse your health outcomes. And nationally, more than 1 in 5 US children report exposure to 2 or more ACEs. Recent research has also demonstrated that children in foster care are at heightened risk of cumulative adversities. The single most common factor for children who develop resiliency is at least one stable and committed relationship with a supportive parent, caregiver, or other adult. And some populations are more vulnerable to experiencing ACEs because of the social economic conditions in which they live, work, and play. And so this additionally can be even worse for people of color and children of color. So why the focus on teens? Adolescence provides a key window of opportunity to ameliorate the short and longer term impacts of trauma and adversity, positively altering the life course trajectory. And this is a quote that I think really speaks volumes to that. So my approach was I reviewed current trauma-informed trainings for foster care licensing in Idaho, and I reviewed literature around ACEs and its effects across a lifespan. I created a training on ACEs and its effects on the brain, children in foster care, resiliency, and individuals across a lifespan. I conducted ACEs trainings with prospective foster parents, current foster parents, and staff. And I collected and analyzed feedback on training effectiveness. So the details on the trainings were an hour long, and it included introduction to impacts of and mitigating the impacts of adverse childhood experiences. My computer was about to die. Attendings were staff, community members, and former and potential foster parents. Trainings were advertised on social media, and I also provided email blasts to every email I can get my hands on. 2 trainings were remote and 1 training was in person. So this was an electronic survey that I did post-training, and I sent it to 15 participants that attended the first training via Zoom. There was a 33% response rate on that. And I also sent 71 staff members after the in-person training this survey, and there was a 20% response rate. Now, I attribute the low response rate to this, to the work crisis that's happening right now. We had a lot of turnover, and a lot of those staff members that were working there left after the training. And so there was that, and then the time constraints and just trying to get everyone to answer was a bit challenging. So current and potential foster parents with a lot of knowledge of the topics before and after training, we can see that before training, only 44% had a lot of knowledge of ACEs and how it affects the brain. And 25% knew about the dose-response relationship between ACEs and negative health outcomes. Only 13% knew about the expanded ACEs graphic. 63% said they knew a lot about the one caring adult, which is what I try to emphasize a lot on, because one caring adult can make all the difference. And 13% knew about the resiliency seesaw, and 13% knew a lot about how to lessen the impact of ACEs on teens and or the parenting or my parent teens. So after the training, we see that there is 100% for ACEs and how they affect the brain, which made me really happy. And then 81% said they knew more about the dose-response relationship between ACEs and negative health outcomes, 63% on the expanded ACEs, 94% on the power of one caring adult, 56% on the resiliency seesaw, and 63% on how to lessen the impact of ACEs. So current and potential foster parents more willing to foster and build resiliency in teens. We had 24% remain neutral, 29% or 47% agree, and 29% strongly agree, which again made me very happy, because I'm like, you guys are agreeing that you could be the change in one teen's life. So this is now the staff with a lot of knowledge of the topics. It was kind of similar to the one before, but we do see that it's in the lower, less than 70% knew about ACEs. And the dose response relationship, 22% knew about the expanded graphic, ACEs graphic, and then 56% on the power of one caring adult. Only 11% knew about the resiliency seesaw. And then after the training, we didn't see much of a change in the ACEs and how they affect the brain and the dose response relationship as well. But we did see an increase on the expanded ACEs graphic, the power of one caring adult, and the resiliency seesaw as well. And like I said, we only had a very low, or we did have a very low response rate on this because of the turnover and the work crisis currently occurring in the department. So I did see that, not a lot of people responded to that, but we did have staff that are willing to foster and build resiliency in teens. We had 11% remain neutral, 33% agree, and then 56% strongly agree. So I'm like, if we can get those 9 people to become foster parents and foster teens, that would be amazing. So you bet I did follow up with them. So the biggest takeaway, ACEs are the single greatest unaddressed public health threat facing our nation. And I totally agree with that statement. This is Dr. Robert Block, former president of the American Academy of Pediatrics. So next steps, I will be conducting ACEs training throughout the state of Idaho, October through December. And I'm currently part of an ACEs work group through the Department of Health and Welfare. We have monthly meetings where we talk about updates on policy, community programs, and efforts to reduce ACEs in the state of Idaho, because this is now an effort throughout the whole state. And I found this ACEs work group by accident, and I'm so glad I became part of it, because I am now representing as a child welfare worker, because we didn't have someone before representing child welfare. And then I'm going to continue sharing my life story to help others and to help people know that just because you have a high ACE score does not mean that you're damaged for life. Your past does not determine your future. And I really want teens to listen to this as well, like teens in foster care that are experiencing instability and they don't have a home, a permanent home yet. They're going through a lot. And I think building that resiliency is a great first step. So MPLD impact. Oh my gosh, I am so glad I became part of this amazing movement. I just love what they're doing. And professionally, I've grown so much as a leader. I've met incredible people. Cohort 4 has been amazing. I just love that we had all our meetings, and now we've already met in person. This is after DC. And I just became so inspired by everyone. And it just made me realize that there is a movement out there of people that are, really wanting to make change and implement that change, especially for children of color in the system. So I'm now also, like I said, part of an ACEs work group in Idaho. And personally, I've seen my life come full circle, and I have found purpose in what I went through in my past. And I realized that my trauma has not been in vain. And I have made the ultimate decision that the cycle ends with me. So I feel like we all have a role to play in that sense when we become aware of what happened to us, to be that person that breaks the cycle so it does not continue with other generations. And then also the importance of community in discussing ACEs. I talk about ACEs with everyone I meet. All my friends and family know me as the ACEs person, and we'll be, casually having breakfast or something, or going out for drinks, and we'll talk about how, we have something going on in our lives, and we are like, oh yeah, we have, ACEs. ACEs is what's happening right now. And we attribute it to ACEs. It's just one of those things that I have tried to talk to everyone about, including my hairdresser, my doctor even, and it's been amazing to see people become interested in it, and just the fact that there's conversation surrounding it has been great. So here are my references. All this information is legit, I promise. So much information out there. And if you have any questions, you can leave them below. I believe this is going to be uploaded on YouTube, and we can, connect. This is my information. This is my email. My LinkedIn can also be linked below. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation. ACEs is something that I think can truly, or just have the conversation around ACEs can truly change a lot of lives and just improve communities in general. So if you want to get in touch, let me know. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation.